Hey everybody, welcome back to MXP Oakland Modern Coverage. I'm Reed Duke. I'm here with Jarvis Yu. We just had a bit of a break, but that's okay. We got some good hanging out with Honorog time. And now we're back with coverage of the last two rounds of day number one. And we have a very fun deck in the feature match area. Let's get down to it. That's right. On the left side of your screen, it is Javier with Golgari Elves, and I can't wait to see this one in action. I'm definitely rooting for the Elves player. On the other side, it's Arthur Spring with Amulet Titan. So I think we can expect this to be a explosive, fast match. Jarvis, any instincts on how this is going to go?
Yeah, thinking everyone's a diver is very, very, very happy here. No two ways about it. I think if I had to guess, I would give a slight advantage to Amulet Titan, but never count out the Shaman of the packs.
Yeah, so if you're wondering what an Elves deck looks like in Modern, it is just all creatures and 4 Collected Company. So the idea is you want to start with a turn 1 mana dork. You want to power out, ideally Elvish Arch Druid is the most powerful creature you can have if it goes unanswered. And then you eventually win the game with Shaman of the Pack, which you can turbo out with Collected Company or Realm Walker, or of course you can just attack with a bunch of elves and elf lords, kind of like the Merfolk deck that we saw on camera last time.
Yeah, from the Amulet Titan side, I think really what you want to do is, have a turn 2 or 3 Amulet Titan if possible, and that should be plenty good enough, I would think, most of the time.
How ambitious is turn 2 Primeval Titan?
I would say it's theoretically possible, but not particularly likely. Although some of the kills involving that usually involve the Mycosynth Gardens now and Arboreal Grazer.
Okay. Some cool additions, that Mycosynth Gardens. All right, so it looks like Javier is good with 6 cards, the elf player, and Arthur Spring is happy with his hand as well.
Is that the elf you won on turn 1, Reed?
It depends. So the most bread and butter start would be a Llanowar Elves or an Elvish Mystic into a 3-drop on turn 2. Mm-hmm. But if Javier happens to have that golden configuration of Nettle Sentinel, Heritage Druid, and more 1-drops, he could have an equally explosive start. Let's see.
Fortunately for Javier, it was a turn 1 Expedition map and not a Amulet of Vigor. Yeah, this is just a good old-fashioned race.
So here's Gilt Leaf Palace, an old favorite from Lorwyn, revealing Elvish War Master. And here comes the War Master, untapped Nettle Sentinel. So still lacking that Heritage Druid, but potentially setting up for a nice turn 3.
Yeah, interestingly enough, Urza Saga in the Amulet Titan deck, it's not a very good Urza Saga deck, but certainly Suspend 2 Amulet of Vigor is plenty good enough in a lot of games.
Okay, so here Javier is going to look to have an explosive Heritage Druid start turn, or just put a bunch of power and toughness onto the battlefield and hope to win by attacking on turn 4. Meanwhile, Arthur Spring is going to end of turn Expedition map and try to have Amulet of Vigor found off Urza Saga Chapter 3, then a way to increase his number of land drops and power out Primeval Titan or some equivalent payoff card. So let's see which of them can execute that game plan better. Oh yeah, there's Heritage Druid.
Yep, it even brings along a friend off the what is that, War Master? So you can cast Collected Company end step?
Correct. So these turns are, they're never super straightforward because you might want to attack with the Nettle Sentinel first and untap it later, but you also might want to try to deploy all your cards and your Collected Companies first to hit more lords. But it looks like Javier might just be on the end of turn collected company plan, hoping to set up a big attack and or hit a couple of well-placed Shaman of the Packs.
For what's with Javier already has a Shaman of the Pack in hand, so you only have to hit, I think, one Shaman of the Pack to be pretty close to lethal. It might even be actually lethal if Arthur doesn't have a really good turn.
So let's just keep it modest. Let's say he just goes ahead and casts Shaman of the Pack. Arthur goes from 14 down to 9. Next turn, Javier threatens to attack for 9 plus 1 from Pendelhaven. So yeah, we can expect Javier to win the game next turn if he's uncontested.
Is that Mycosynth Gardens? It looks like it, right?
So that means that's looking to copy Ur's Amulet of Vigor and then start doubling the untap triggers. But I still think Arthur is going to need a way to play multiple lands if he's really going to accomplish anything meaningful on this turn.
Arboreal Grazer does work like a Desperate Ritual or Rite of Flame, whatever analog you want to use.
Well, let's say Desperate Ritual because this is certainly a desperate situation against the ever-increasing elf army.
Oh, but that is a Dryad, but we had to play the Mycosynth Garden to do it.
Okay, so what Arthur's doing is he's setting up a win for next turn and producing a blocker, which I think is, I mean, it will work if Javier just fully bricks on the collected company, but I think the majority outcome here is that Javier is just going to grossly overpower that Dryad.
Yeah, we couldn't really afford to set up this turn. I think we had to have a really good draw and just go full speed. That's what card is that?
Realm Walker. So with one tribal lord, it's not, I think it's going to be good enough, but it's not like the craziest outcome. So let's say deploy the shaman, that's 7 life down to 7, and then that's plenty of enough attackers going unblocked. Okay, so we're going to have Elves winning game number 1, largely, as you said, Jarvis, on the back of the advantage of going first.
Yeah, this is just like too much damage. Wait, are we casting things instead of attacking with everything? So
are you certain you saw Shaman of the Pack in hand?
No, but I thought I did.
Okay.
I thought the last 2 cards were Collected Company and Shaman of the Pack. Of course, I could have misseen.
Yeah, if Javier doesn't have Shaman of the Pack, then this game is more interesting. He can attack for a lot of damage, but not necessarily a lethal amount. Okay, so now we're calling the judge because the Elvish Warcaller trigger was, well, I'm not going to say missed, ambiguous. We have Javier having resolved the triggered ability from Leaf Crown Visionary and looked at the top card for the Realm Walker. It seems to me perfectly plausible that the Elvish Warcaller trigger would still be on the stack.
Right.
But I really like the way Javier is handling this situation. Just call the judge, explain honestly what happened, and see what their ruling is. That's exactly what I would do.
Agreed.
Okay, Chad is pointing out that also a land drop was made. So that does potentially change the way that the judge would handle the situation.
Sure.
But yeah, so, in a technical sense, Javier casted Elf. He has 3 triggered abilities: Elvish War Master, Nettle Sentinel, and Leaf Crown Visionary. And you can resolve those triggers in whatever order you please. But once he's played a land, that can definitely be interpreted that the stack is empty and the trigger is missed. So we'll see. We'll let the judges do their thing.
Yeah, I think Chat's also pointing out that there was a War Master trigger missed on instant because Collected Company would trigger War Master by an elf coming in, right?
Oh, okay. So the War Master triggers upon an elf entering the battlefield?
Yeah, I believe so.
Correct.
And it says this only triggers once per turn, otherwise you would just get an infinite loop off the first token coming in. Which is probably for the best that it's not worded that way, right?
I don't know. I mean, I like the elf deck getting a little help. A little turn
A little help? Turn 3, like turn 3 draw the game. Because like the stack will never be empty, right?
You were right, Jarvis. There is a shaman of the pack. It really seems to me like Javier, I mean, I'm sorry to say it, but overthought this turn. Like you really could just win by attacking in combat here. So it's 8 life down to 6. The Nettle Sentinel and the Elf token can still attack, but the Realm Walker and the Shaman cannot. So it looks like you probably need another Shaman to win this game.
Right.
And that looks like maybe an Elvish Archdruid.
The problem with doing all of this, in my opinion, is there's just a good chance that all of your stuff dies to Valkid triggers. But
you found it.
Wow. Yeah.
All right. Winning in style, Javier. Like I said, I think he made that one more difficult than it needed to be, but showcasing the power of his deck, comboing off with Nettle Sentinel, Heritage Druid, and Realm Walker. And hey, I mean, I had fun that game. I'm rooting for the Elves player.
Yep, I mean, casting spells is certainly fun. I won't deny that.
Jarvis, I'm going to take a page out of your book from what you said about Merfolk last round, but there's really 2 types of people in this world, and both of them love elves.
Yes, I do enjoy elves myself. I actually picked up the Elves deck after Pro Tour Berlin, which was Luis's one.
Yeah, I remember that fondly. I really enjoyed playing elves in a format called Extended, which was a precursor to Modern. And you had every format of elves, you have a different configuration of weapons to work with. So in that Extended format, you didn't have Glimpse of Nature, but you had Green Sun Zenith. And you could really do some cool stuff with that. I remember that I would often win the game with if you had Azuri, Renegade Leader, and multiple copies of Devoted Druid, you could basically like overrun with Azuri, which would pump the Devoted Druids and allow you to untap them 3 more times, net 6 mana, repeat the process. So you could go infinite in that way and win by attacking. But yeah, elves are just super, super fun in all formats. And in Modern right now, they have, some weaknesses and some risks, like the card Fury, the card Ren and 6. These are ones you don't want to be running into every single round. But like we saw in that game, if you can just do your thing, Elves is very, very fast, very, very potent, and it certainly does have some very real strengths.
Yeah, it's a tough sell for Amulet Titan to start downing game this matchup because I don't think the deck has a lot of removal. So really the way it wins is by being more explosive than the Elves deck. This is sort of a situation where it's just 2 ships passing in the night.
Yeah, I think so too. So we can predict the die roll is going to matter a lot. I actually, you know what, Jarvis? I really like Javier's sideboard for this matchup.
I saw that too.
The key card that I'm going to mention is Stain the Mind. So if you're not familiar with this one, it's 5 mana, sorcery with Convoke. So very realistic that you can play it as early as turn 3. Name a non-land card, search target player's graveyard, hand, and library for all those cards, and exile them. So just a very quick and easily achievable version of, Cranial Extraction or Necromentia for a deck that can convoke something out very easily. In addition, he's got cards like Assassin's Trophy and Damping Sphere that can disrupt the mana of the Amulet Titan player. Unfortunately for Arthur, it looks like he's going down to 5, but Amulet is one of those decks that can very realistically win a game on 5 cards.
Yeah, no problem. If I could choose a 5-card hand, it would probably kill on turn 3.
Jarvis, do you like Damping Sphere against Amulet Titan?
I do. The second clause on it is shutting off the bounce lands so they only tap for a single Wingdings mana is the relevant part.
Okay. So yeah, I guess it's pretty difficult for the Amulet deck to get a lot of traction without those bounce lands.
Right.
This might honestly just be a great matchup for Javier after sideboarding.
Right. I was thinking that some more. I think game one's like kind of even. Just Javier won the die roll, which is a huge advantage. And then post board, if you side in all of those cards and don't dilute your deck too much to make it non-functional, then it probably works out well for you.
Even Force of Vigor and Reclamation Sage, you can tag an Urza Saga or Amulet or Dryad.
Ooh, the Rex Sage. There's only one, right?
Yep, there's only one. It's going to pop the Amulet, which is very painful after you've already mulliganed to 5 and are low on resources. Arboreal Grazer, also notably a card that becomes less impressive when you have a lower amount of resources. Like you see Arthur just accelerated out with the Grazer, but now is missing land drops anyway, so not really helping him in the long run there.
I have a question. Well, what's that face down card? Okay. It was drawn for turn, I suppose.
Just, keeping your cards in multiple bank accounts there.
Ooh, Heritage Druid. That's a Realmwalker, I assume?
Correct.
All right, we got a lot of stuff, but there are no lords or Shaman of the Pack, so can we assemble something this turn? Cavern, Simic Growth Chamber, and Mystery card. I didn't see the last card.
Okay, so Arthur is saving the Simic Growth Chamber for a burst of 2 mana, and the good news is he is set up if he draws a Titan, but bad news is he doesn't have anything going now, and he's not going to get a lot more time.
So I was told the last card is Summoner's Pact, which is actually a good enough card. So if we draw an Amulet or an Arboreal Grazer, we would actually have enough mana to cast a Titan. Leaf Crown Visionary?
I think that could be Azuri, Renegade Leader.
Oh, is that an alternate art, Azuri?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, actually, the land next to Valkut is a bounce land as well, so we actually have 6.
Yeah, so you can Summoner's Pact for a Titan and make that happen. I mean, this might be one of the rare spots where it's just not enough. Especially like Javier is repping hard the end of turn collected company here.
Yeah. It's pretty easy to suss out that the top card is not an elf, though, right? Because basically all elves would have been cast.
That sounds accurate.
All right, so let's see what lands we get.
Are you thinking about the Slayer Stronghold Boros Garrison thing here?
Yeah, I'm thinking about it. The problem with that, I think, is let's see, if you do that, Javier could triple block to trade with the Titan. You could also get Simic, Growth Chamber, and Toyer West. One thing to note is you're going to need double green by the end of your turn. Otherwise, you'll be dead to your Summoner's Pact.
So actually, did Arthur wind up casting the Pact, or did he just draw a Titan for the turn? I don't see Pact in the graveyard.
Oh, maybe he did draw. Oh, in which case, there might be a better play here, which is you Pact for Dryad of Elysian Grove. And if you have an extra land, you can start bolting things.
Okay.
Oh, but he might not have enough lands in play to actually do this.
Oh dear. So the double Valakut with only 5 lands on the battlefield. Oh man.
Well, a land was played this turn, right? The Simic Growth Chamber was played.
Correct. One land drops, so he has one more to go.
Is the last card Arboreal Grazer? No, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's only 5 lands in play, right?
Correct.
So Valakut shouldn't trigger.
Correct.
That is not.
For what it's worth, Javier can overrun with Azuri here because he has Heritage Druid and 2 lands untapped. So,
yeah. So the judge is actually coming over because I think they're probably listening to us talk about it. But yeah, Valakut should not trigger with only 5 lands in play.
I think Javier has some reasonable counterplay, like in a wide range of situations here with the Azuri activation, possibly a collected company. I was wondering, like, what happens if he's holding a Boseiju or an Assassin's Trophy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you just Boseiju, like, suppose the Valakut triggers were on the stack, you can interrupt by Boseijuing the Dryad anyways. Mm-hmm. Or you could just, tap all of your lands and activate Azuri, and that saves both of your creatures. If that's actually the case, I think you're supposed to send both triggers at Azuri, because I believe Azuri cannot regenerate itself, right?
Correct. Regenerate another target elf. But Azuri's overrun ability does pump itself.
Yep. So basically, I think this is probably not going to be good enough for Arthur. It kind of looks like he's just dead on board, or kind of close to dead on board, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with not quite dead on board, but like dangerously close. For one thing, the Elves player needs to tap some number of creatures in order to overrun.
Right.
For another, Arthur does have a couple blockers.
So does Javier actually have the collected company? Doesn't look like it if he's untapping, right? So the real problem is if Javier doesn't actually have lethal this turn, things are going to get ugly, right?
Yes.
Ooh, that's just 3 lands in hand, right?
Oh, wow. But he gets to check the top of his library. And he has a nurturing peat land, right, to redraw. So with the Realm Walker, he could still make some things happen.
Right. There's always the out of like double trauma in the pack with 10 elves out, right? Fountain. So suppose we did attack with everything. What would happen?
Okay, so the Titan gets to block something for free. The Arboreal Grazer is disposable. The problem comes if the Dryad has to get involved in combat, because that can take the Valakut angle away. So let's see. I think that you're good if you block, like, for example, 2 of the 2 power creatures with the Titan and the Grazer.
Right.
Then an Overrun has 4, 8, 12, 17 going unblocked, plus 2 additional trample damage from whatever the Grazer is blocking. That's 19. So just on the board, I'm thinking, okay, I take 19. I kill off Azuri in combat, and then I start using Valakut to decimate your army, or just kill you outright.
I think it's just killing Javier outright now, right?
Because so, Jarvis, is this another like 1 life comeback situation that we've seen a lot of just crazy games here?
Right. So I think it's actually going to be overkill for Arthur, because the first Titan attack can get Vesuva, copying Valakut, the 1 pinnacle. To me, that looks like overkill by a lot.
Yep. So we got to check if we did our combat math right. We got to check if the Summoner's Pact gets paid for, and then it's just all up to Arthur to execute the straightforward kill here.
Double checking. I think Arthur's just double checking everything after the slight mishap with the Valakuts earlier. Will he remember the pact? Probably. There's a die on top of the library. Kind of hard to miss it with that die there, right? Girl, 1 life. Do you love to see it?
There's the pact.
Yep, Dryad making the double green pretty trivial. So that's 6 damage. You get Vesuva and Toyer West. Vesuva copies Valakut, so that's 18 damage.
Yeah, I mean, I think it doesn't matter at this point, but can you explain the Teleria West? What's going on with that one?
Just insurance for a bounce land for, I don't know. It kind of didn't matter by that point, right?
Yeah, definitely didn't matter. Wow, so that's Arthur actually winning that game from a really crummy start and a mulligan to 5. On the other hand, Javier, like, I think it was a pretty unlikely set of events with the Realm Walker. He just totally like petered out with the top of his library, and almost got over the finish line anyway. So yeah, I mean, definitely a close game and an unexpected outcome. And we'll see what happens in game number 3 with Javier on the play. Let's see if maybe some of those sideboard cards get involved.
I just want to note that apparently Arthur did not have engineered explosives in the deck for game 2. And I would say that I would recommend putting engineered explosives in the deck that's mostly 1-drops.
Yeah, I agree. You know, I would for sure board it in. I don't think it's like an ace in the matchup because elves, you know, by the time they have 6 elves on the battlefield, they have a pretty like diverse diversity of mana costs. So you're not gonna.
Right.
It's not like a pure Wrath of God, but it is definitely an efficient card that I think you would want access to. You can even transmute for it with your Teleria West.
Yeah, I think the reason I like it more than some of the alternative cards is it lets you break serve.
Yeah, I think that's important. So maybe that could be Arthur's thinking, like on the play, I'm happy to just goldfish and do my thing, and then on the draw, I turn to the engineer explosives, try to flip the race in my favor.
Yeah. Also, I think if Javier had worked out that the attack wasn't lethal, you probably should just cycle your Peatland and hope to hit double Shaman instead, because you're clearly dead on board to the Primeval Titan plus Valakits, in my opinion.
Yes. It also looked like he declined some attacks the previous turn in favor of holding up the Azuri overrun, which actually that looked like it might have been a genius play when we thought the Valakuts might start triggering, but with the way things actually played out, if he had chipped in for a couple more damage, he might have been able to find a win.
Right.
He also drew, along those lines, he drew an Elvish War Master, which means that was the top card of his library the previous turn.
Yeah, so you could have played it. Yeah.
So a lot of ifs, ands, and buts, so to speak, about that previous game, but we'll just say it was a very close one.
It was extremely close, yeah. I think that game was a good showing of how busted Dryad of the Legion Grove plus Valakut the Molten Pinnacle is. No mountains to be found here except for the imaginary mountains.
It's a pretty funny hand from Arthur. It's like just a million lands and a turn one grazer.
Yeah.
Including Urza's Saga. Yeah, I guess you can't really keep. Ooh, Javier with the nice Elves of Deep Shadow. Jarvis, we've been on a kick of cards from the dark.
Yeah, that is from the dark. Yeah. From the dark, then reprinted into Ravnica City of Guilds. You know, my first big finish in an SCG was with Golgari Elves in Lorwyn Block Standard.
Wow, some sweet Jarvis trivia right there. Do you have some Chameleon Colossuses?
Yes, I had Thoughtseize and Profane Command in my deck, though. So more of a Jund deck than like an Elf deck is what I would say. Yeah, that art is so good.
I love Arthur's face there. He's like, wow, cool. That's what I would say too.
I would also say, wow, cool.
Javier kind of strikes me as the type of guy that's had that Elves of Deep Shadow since the 1990s too, right?
I agree. All right. Do we got the turn 2 Rex stage for the Amulet of Vigor? Is that Azuri?
That is Elvish Archdruid, which this is what I was talking about, the bread and butter opening for Elves. Archdruid, if that goes unanswered, just leads to some crazy explosive turns. And Amulet Titan is not a deck that can easily answer the Archdruid. However,
what if you kill your opponent on turn 2 instead?
Yeah, I asked you at the start how realistic is turn 2 Titan?
I would say not that realistic, but with this hand, more realistic. So we're up to we have a green floating probably. Then we replay our land. We'll go up to 5. So if you have a Grazer or an Explorer, it works out. But we're just copying Amulet instead. So next turn, if Arthur's not dead, you could see some real fireworks. We could actually have 4 Amulets in play, which I'm not sure that part's necessary.
Yeah, so Javier really wants to. I mean, it's conceivably possible that he could win the game here with involving Heritage Druid and multiple Shaman of the Packs. but more likely he just wants to see some kind of disruptive element like Stain the Mind or Damping Sphere or Force of Vigor.
War Master.
He does have, somebody said in chat, he does have one Fracturing Gust in his sideboard. Not a card that I would necessarily expect to be in the deck, but hey, if it's there, this is the time for it. It would kill all of Arthur's permanents.
Okay, so if Javier's last card is Stain the Mind, this is actually a pretty good setup because you can cast it off the Elves of Deep Shadow.
Man, look at the class with the Dana Fisher Elves token.
Oh, that is a nice one. But how about Elvish Archdruid tapping for Realmwalker? They're asking if this elf token's okay.
Oh, it's more than okay.
Apparently they just disagreed. So that should be 2 floating from the Archdruid now.
Mm-hmm. And the Realmwalker. So this is what he needs. If he finds Heritage Druid, then the sky's the limit. You know, he could do some really impressive stuff, including winning the game with Shaman of the Pack. But I'm afraid to see what happens if Arthur gets to untap here with no disruption.
Wait, we're tapping for black.
All right, so that could be.
Oh, so now we have no mana floating now.
All right, so that's it.
I mean, assuming there's a Primeval Titan, this looks very, 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 very bad for Javier.
Okay, so can you start? I mean, I'm not going to make you win the game in your head here, but what is the Primeval Titan going to do?
So I think from this board state, you could actually chain a bunch of Primeval Titans, then have the last Titan get Boros, Garrison, Slayer Stronghold, and then have it target all of the Titans.
Okay, so you're talking. So let me see if I am hearing you correctly. You're talking about each Titan goes for like a Simic Growth Chamber and a Teleria West.
Yeah.
You make 1,000,000 mana. You transmute the Teleria West for Summoner's Pact. Rinse and repeat.
Yes.
Then when you eventually get the Boros, Garrison, Slayer Stronghold, it's untapping 4 times. You target all your Titans.
Yeah. The actual terminal point is most Amulet Titan decks only play 2 Teleria West now, so you can only get 3 Titans.
Only 3 Titans, but that would still be an attack for 24 damage, plus at that point, the Dryad's already on the battlefield, so you could start getting some battle cards. So, Jarvis, this might be crazy enough to work. Let's do it.
I mean, that's 8 mana from a single land.
So 9 floating, counting the one from Urza Saga. Still 9 floating.
Yeah, this is a turn 3 kill, I believe, right? But it's going to look so not close. I don't really like presenting the deck to the opponent in between because you just search every time. In fact, this is when I used to play Amulet Titan. In this scenario, I would just tell my opponent, I'm just going to search like 6 times. There's no reason for you to cut in between. Because it's just a waste of time.
Good tip.
That looks like a Simic Growth Chamber plus Slayer West to me. That makes 12 mana, and the West will end up in your hand. We have the helpful mana dice. And I believe you'll be able to activate Sunhome twice in case if somehow you didn't want to Valak it.
Sunhome is old school. I wasn't sure if that one was still played, but yeah, I guess sometimes you need it. Sunhome gives double strike.
Actually, let me confirm. There's actually 2 ways the deck is built. Some people just play Handler Garrison and don't play the Slayer Stronghold Boros Garrison, in which case, if you do that setup, you don't have Sunhome in your deck. But I just confirmed that there's a Boros Garrison, Slayer Stronghold, and Sunhome in the deck. And in fact, there's only 2 Teleria West, like I sort of had a feeling. So yeah, you're going to see a lot of damage. Yep, the chain continues. Does this feel like you're watching a Storm deck in some regards?
Yeah, I mean, I'm daydreaming about all the stuff you could do with all this floating mana that you're netting every time. It's like just fireball.
Are you a fan of-
transmute for Walking Ballista as the last one and make a 50-50?
the deck used to play Walking Ballista. Then I think it got power crept out of existence, which is kind of sad. What about Cultivator Colossus? Is that a card you're interested in?
Well, you're putting a. Well, I don't know. It seems like you don't. Seems like it would not. At this point, there's no lethal or not lethal. It's like what is the most convenient and straightforward way to get to lethal. And I don't necessarily see Cultivator Colossus in that camp. Get that Dryad in there too. No, a second activation on one of the Titans. So we have 10 + 8 + 8. That would already by itself force some really unfavorable blocks. But once the Valakuts get in the mix.
So you shouldn't actually get the Valakuts on the first trigger, I think, but that's kind of irrelevant. Because if you get them on the second trigger, they'll all trigger. Oh, maybe it works out the same. Yeah, never mind. It actually works out the same. But yeah, it was like Omega lethal, is how I would put it.
All right, and that's so Arthur Spring with one very close win, scraping over the finish line, and one somewhat more convincing win, the turn 3 triple Titan attacking there, and he is good for day 2. We'll see him tomorrow.
Yeah. Will you describe that as a Mortal Kombat fatality sort of situation in that game 3?
Yeah, I think so. It's like, you attacked me for so much damage in game 1 with the double shaman that I'm going to show you who's boss in game number 3.